Star Ocean: The Second Story R is officially set to release onto the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation consoles, and the PC via Steam on November 2nd. And this 2.5D art style amazing game is getting a lot of attention as a brand new demo has now become available, whether it is on the PlayStation Store or Nintendo Switch eShop, where you can actually play a huge portion of the game. I believe it's up to 3 hours or so, and your save data will be able to carry over into the full game. Not only that, we have a brand new batch of gameplay that I wanted to go over, and more importantly, a little bit of an overview as well, where more information has been revealed and more features have become fully transparent as Square Enix is trying to get more eyes into this title. So today, not only do I want to go over a couple of those brand new details, I also want to talk about some of those brand new interesting features that we do get to see in this brand new official trailer. For those who don't necessarily know, there's a variety of elements that have been added specifically to this game. Now completely reimagined with brand new visuals. They basically talk about in the trailer how there's going to be exploration available in the game. Battles are going to be a little bit faster than you actually got to see them in the original game, and a couple of brand new systems have been completely reworked. One of the things that they spent a lot of time on is talking about the field, aka the overview world whenever you are out exploring. Of course, whenever you're in town, you are not necessarily in danger. There's no monsters appearing in town or anything like that. But whenever you exit one of the towns, one of the cities, you'll be in what they're calling the fields or the overview world. This is where you get to walk through vast fields, massive terrains of like icy mountains, desert terrains, forests, whatever the case is. You can actually manipulate the camera here. One of the only few areas where you actually do get to see that. And characters will actually be speaking to each other as something that they're calling flavor text. You'll be seeing little chat bubbles kind of like pop up as they're kind of like making conversations with each other whenever you come into like contact with something. Even whenever you go into the menus, they'll be talking to each other. One of the characters will have something to say, hey, maybe this piece of equipment should be equipped, or something along those lines. Whenever you get near a specific character, or whenever you get access to a specific weapon or a new ring or a new accessory, a new piece of armor, they all comment on these things. So it continually gives a feedback on what it is that the game is actually experiencing and giving you more information as to what it is that you should expect. Another one of those things you should be able to see in the overfield view is the symbol encounters. And this essentially is whenever you're about to fight an enemy. Whenever you're fighting an enemy, you can actually sneak up on them from behind the back, and you can actually like stun them before they call this a little bit like a stun gauge or whatever whenever you start them up. But if you actually get seen by enemies and then multiple enemies kind of lock upon you, this is called an enemy link. So you'll actually end up having multiple battles back to back. So you can have multiple enemies kind of engage you at the same time. There'll be like a battle chain like on the upper left side of the screen that basically tells you like, hey, you're gonna have X amount of monsters. You can actually chain them together up to 5. So you can chain 5 different monsters together, or groups of monsters together, that are going to be able to fight you, and this will be helpful for your experience multiplier. If you're going to be grinding, which of course all RPGs have that, you're going to be dealing with a lot of those chained monster attacks. Now, another thing you're going to see in the overview world are unique spots. These are unique locations kind of like scattered throughout the world. Hey, maybe there's a waterfall here. Maybe these are some ruins here. Maybe there's a water wheel here. Maybe there's a statue here. Whatever the situation may be, many kind of like little bit things of information will be kind of popping up all over the place, telling you that you discovered something. Xenoblade players will probably be very familiar to this kind of tactic. Another thing you should be able to see on the overview, and this related to battles, are raid enemies. These are huge boss encounters that are going to be glowing, so they're pretty much telling you ahead of time, hey, these monsters are pretty tough, they're pretty engaging, and you kind of need to be ready to be engaging. So they're not necessarily going to be just a random monster that is going to be popping up out of nowhere. You'll be able to see them kind of like showing up on the field whenever you're walking around. Another thing you can do out in the field is fishing. You're going to have a couple of mini fishing fishing mini games there. You stand next to the river, next to the lake, you stand on a whatever, like a port, and you're going to be able to gather some materials, and there's an encyclopedia for fishing and all these kind of things. There might be quests specifically tied to that. There might be some rewards specifically tied to that. So of course you're going to be able to do a lot of that. There might also be sometimes like you fish out monsters as well out of the ocean as well, so you should be able to keep your eyes peeled for that. Now transition over to the actual battles. They do talk about like the counter mechanic. Essentially you have one specific button tied to a counter. It looks like a little bit of a dodge, but you basically back out of the way. You can actually have multipliers, whether you gain health, you gain MP, you gain stat boost, whatever the case is. You dodge out of the way from one attack. Enemies will actually glow red whenever they're about to attack you and whenever they're about to strike. If you have been playing Monster Hunter now, obviously if you've been watching my channel, you should be. It's a really good mobile game, and if you know anything about Monster Hunter now, you know that whenever a monster is going to attack you, they glow red. So therefore you should be able to see in this game, whenever an enemy is about to attack, they glow red. You dodge out of the way, you counter attack. It's pretty easy. One of the things you also should be able to note here in the combat situations is the shield value. This is something, a bunch of shields that the enemies have on top, and whenever you break their shields, they basically go into a break mode. This basically means that they become paralyzed. They are vulnerable to critical attacks. So pretty much every single one of your attacks will be glowing yellow. That basically means it's a critical. You're doing twice, 3 times more damage than you typically would. Amongst said enemies that you might be fighting, sometimes you might see an enemy that's a little bit bigger than the other ones. This one is called the leader enemy. And this one, if you actually choose to focus on that enemy above all the other ones that you have available on your screen that you can actually attack, if you break that specific enemy, then you'll be able to break every single enemy alongside in that specific battle. So it helps kind of like speed up the process, especially if you're doing those farming chain XP kind of like grinds that I mentioned earlier at the top of the video. Another thing you should be able to focus on whenever you break an enemy are bonus gauges. These are something that you'll notice on the bottom right side on the screen, and this is basically a number that continually glows and it rises. Whenever you take down an enemy, you'll see a yellow or a golden orb kind of fall into the ground. Your number will continue to grow, whether it is from 0 to 100, 100 to 200, or 200 to 300. Those numbers will essentially mean, hey, you are now having X amount of attack boost, maybe X heals amounts per whatever combo attack that you do. These are passive boosters that whenever you're taking down enemies on one specific area, these will continually be going up. So this is something that you should keep your eyes peeled for at all times. These can also be modified whenever you go into the formation and the tactics screen. This is something that if you're playing the demo, you should be relatively familiar with already, as whenever you do like one attack, you can do extra 40 damage on any one single attack, or you can focus on having an extra 40% evade instead, depending upon the formation of your characters. You have 4 active characters at any one time. You can choose to reorder them in any way you want, and those passives will become available there. So you do have some good values there to keep in mind. Then you also have the assault action abilities. These are essentially characters that are not necessarily part of your active team or your active roster that you have full control over. They can be like dropped into for just one quick attack, one quick combo to keep your chain going, to keep your action going whenever you want to break an enemy. Maybe you want to drop a poison cloud or something out on the ground. These assault actions from supporter allies are going to be available there. And one of the things that we do get a confirmation of is that there's going to be more assault action enemies or supporter characters available in this version of the game than there were in the original release. So some characters that simply were not available or playable originally in the first PlayStation launch version of the game, this time around they actually become playable to some degree. They're supportive characters. Another one of the things that they talk about here is the item creation, where just like in many other Star Ocean games, you're going to be able to chain items together. So if you want to make a sword, for example, with boosted critical attack, you kind of want to boost that same sword over and over and over and over again, and you're basically stacking up buffs on top of another. So you're going to be able to kind of like take advantage of that if you want. At the same time, of course, if you haven't been playing the demo, you should be able to know that whenever you power up a character, you choose where it is you want to like power up a specific character, whether it is defense, whether it is attack, whether it is critical, and these creation weapons as well, you're going to be able to kind of like level them up as well. In the character development options, they also mentioned that of course you're going to be able to equip whatever kind of like passive skills you want to do, but you're going to be able to boost them up as well based on however much experience you gain. So not only are abilities going to become like more powerful, but of course passives as well. If you want your character to fully be focused on like evading attacks and then being able to dish out a critical after an evade, you can do that. But if you want that same character to focus on like, you know, resilience damage or resistance damage, basically they mitigate damage of the best that they can, they'll still intake some damage, but then they can dish it out right back to the enemy, or like mirror damage as well. There's plenty of ways. Each one of the characters is kind of like adjustable in that regard, and they're all going to have their very own options. So it is pretty interesting in the way that they're choosing to kind of let you freely adjust the characters any way you want. The last thing here that they talk about here is the private actions, and this is pretty much the Persona fan among us here. I should be very happy to see this. Private actions are pretty much friendship levels, or you know, whenever you see like you want to romanticize the character or something along those lines, you're going to be able to have those options here. Whenever you're in town, you're going to be able to take on a quest specifically for those characters. You're going to be able to have conversations with them, get to know them a little better. They don't necessarily mention anything about gifts or anything along those lines, but you are going to be able to have those options to be kind of become a little bit more friendly with one character maybe over another. Another thing that they do specifically talk about here is voice acting. Of course, you have the original characters, and you have the original like version, and then a re-recorded version of the game as well. You have English and Japanese audio. So unlike Baten Kaito's HD remaster, which we recently spoke about, the developers choosing to just opt in not to include the English version of the voiceover. This time around for this game, you have not only the original one, but you have the fully reworked audio recordings as well, which are going to be really interesting. I've been playing the demo myself. It sounds really good as well. And you're going to have the Japanese audio as well, with of course subtitles available. So there's plenty of options here when the game releases on November 2nd. Once again, Star Ocean Second Story R drops onto the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and PC via Steam. If you're brand new to my channel though, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up, and as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.